Growing up, I never imagined that being alone could be a gift, like most people. I was taught that happiness meant surrounding yourself with others' family, friends, mentors, co-workers, and keeping busy. It wasn't until I found myself without those constant connections that I began to understand the deeper value of solitude. This chapter of my life didn't start as a choice. It started as a necessity. Work slowed down. My social circle thinned, and I was left standing on my own, unsure of how to move forward. I couldn't distract myself with parties, handshakes, or rehearsals. All I had was myself. And that's when I realized solitude wasn't the enemy. It was my opportunity. At first, the silence felt awkward, even uncomfortable. I'd sit in my tiny one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx, listening to the distant hum of traffic outside, trying to fill the quiet with music or television. But one day, I turned it all off. I sat still. I let the quiet envelop me. It was just me, a cracked mirror leaning against the wall, and my thoughts. And in that quiet, something remarkable happened. I began to hear a voice I'd been drowning out for years, my own. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone can actually be the most clarifying, empowering experience you'll ever have. In those moments of stillness, I began to ask myself questions I'd avoided for a long time. What do you want out of life? What kind of man do you want to be? I didn't have all the answers, but the act of listening to myself was powerful. For the first time, I wasn't looking outside for approval. I wasn't chasing someone else's definition of success. I was turning inward. Solitude taught me that my sense of self didn't have to be tied to other people. It didn't have to depend on applause or validation from the outside world. It could come from within. When I finally understood that, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I started to see that being alone was an opportunity to reconnect with who I was at my core. It gave me the chance to understand what I stood for, what I valued, and what made me truly happy. And here's the thing: when you learn to be comfortable in your own company, you stop fearing silence. You start appreciating it. That silence becomes a space for reflection, growth, and discovery. It's where you can dream freely, plan clearly, and remind yourself that you are enough. You don't need someone else to complete you. You are already whole. Once I began to see solitude as a gift rather than a burden, I realized that the key to happiness alone wasn't just about sitting in silence. It was about what I did with that time. I had all these hours to myself, but what was I supposed to do with them? That's when I discovered that purpose isn't just something you stumble upon. It's something you shape and refine, especially in those moments when you're by yourself. Being alone gave me the chance to hear the quiet callings of my soul. It allowed me to focus, to dream, and to find out what truly made me come alive. When you strip away the noise, the distractions, and the constant feedback of others, you're left with a rare opportunity, the chance to decide for yourself what you really want. For me, it started with writing. I began keeping a journal, not just a list of tasks or appointments, but a place where I could spill out my fears, my aspiration, and my visions for the future. I'd write down the roles I wanted to play someday, the stories I longed to tell, and the lessons I hoped to learn. Journaling became a mirror, reflecting back the things that truly mattered to me. What I learned during those quiet moments was that happiness doesn't come from waiting for something to happen or relying on others to give you a sense of direction. It comes from understanding your purpose and moving toward it. Once I started to uncover what I was passionate about: acting, storytelling, making people think and feel deeply, I felt a new kind of energy when I was alone. My solitude stopped feeling like a void. It became a workshop, a studio, a place where I could put in the work to get closer to my goals. Now, here's the beautiful thing about purpose. It's not a fixed destination. It's a journey. In the beginning, my purpose felt vague, like a blurry image in the distance. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to achieve, but I knew it had to do with inspiring people. With time, as I spent more hours alone, reflecting and writing, that blurry image started to come into focus. I wanted to take on roles that challenged me. I wanted to bring stories to life that mattered. I wanted to move people the way my favorite actors and storytellers had moved me. That clarity wouldn't have come if I hadn't embraced my time alone. When you take time to focus on your purpose, something incredible happens. You stop relying on others to fill that sense of fulfillment. You stop waiting for validation from outside sources. Instead, you start looking inward and asking, what can I do to move closer to the life I want? And when you have that kind of clarity, being alone doesn't feel lonely. It feels meaningful. It feels productive. It feels like progress. Solitude became the space where I could work on myself, not just as an actor, but as a person. I started studying my craft with intention, reading scripts, watching performances, and rehearsing monologues in the mirror. That time alone, driven by a sense of purpose, turned into the foundation of my success. It gave me the confidence to walk into auditions, the discipline to improve my skills, and the resilience to keep going when things didn't go my way. The purpose I found wasn't just about a career, it was about becoming the kind of person I could respect and be proud of. Looking back, I realized that without that time to reflect and dream, I might never have found the courage to pursue my purpose. Solitude wasn't just a pause in my life. It was a springboard. It gave me the space to uncover my calling, the focus to pursue it, and the strength to keep moving forward even when no one else was around to cheer me on. Life has a way of testing you, especially when you least expect it. When the world around you falls silent, when the phone stops ringing and the doors seem to close one after another, it's easy to feel like you're stranded on an island. But what I discovered through my own experiences is that solitude isn't a sign of weakness or failure, it's a proving ground. It's the place where your true strength is forged. When I started my journey as an actor, rejection was a constant companion. There were times I'd walk into an audition room full of hope, only to leave with a polite thank you and no. Call back. Some days, I'd get so close to landing a role that I could practically taste it, only to watch it slip through my fingers. In those moments, it wasn't the applause of a crowd or the encouragement of others that kept me going. It was the quiet resolve I'd built during my time alone. You see, solitude teaches you something crucial: how to rely on yourself. When there's no one else around to tell you to keep going, you learn to be your own coach, your own cheerleader, your own source of motivation. For me, that meant sitting down after a rejection and asking myself, what did I learn today? How can I be better tomorrow? Instead of wallowing in self-pity, I used that time to practice, to read, to rehearse. I started to see every setback as a stepping stone, every quiet moment as a chance to refine my craft. One memory stands out vividly. I'd been turned down for a role I desperately wanted, the kind of role that would have been a game changer. I was crushed. But that night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I made a decision. I told myself, you're not going to let this stop. You're going to get up tomorrow and be even better. That decision wasn't made in a crowded room. It wasn't inspired by a pep talk from a friend. It came from within. It came from the strength I'd cultivated in those quiet moments of solitude. Over time, I began to see solitude not as something to avoid, but as something to embrace. It was during those solitary moments that I found my resilience. I learned how to stand tall on my own, how to face my fears, and how to keep moving forward no matter what. The more comfortable I became with being alone, the more I realized I didn't need someone else's validation to feel worthy. I didn't need a crowd to confirm my value. I just needed to believe in myself. And that's the beauty of finding strength in solitude. Once you've learned how to rely on yourself, you become unshakable. No matter what life throws at you, no matter how many times you're knocked down, you know how to get back up. You know how to keep pushing forward, not because someone else is watching, but because you've built that strength from within. You've proven to yourself over and over again that you have what it takes. In the quiet spaces of my life, I found something that no stage, no applause, and no awards could ever give me: true freedom. This freedom wasn't about breaking free from obligations or cutting ties with people. It was about releasing the need for outside validation and discovering the limitless power of self-love. When you learn to be happy alone, you begin to realize that you're already enough. You don't have to perform for anyone. You don't have to prove yourself, and you certainly don't have to wait for someone else to complete you. When I was younger, I used to think that happiness meant having a full social calendar or a big audience in front of me. But through my times of solitude, I learned that the loudest applause isn't external, it comes from within. It's the inner voice that says, I am proud of who I am. I love myself, not because I'm perfect, but because I'm growing. I'm learning. I'm trying. That's a voice you can only hear when the world gets quiet and you're left alone with your thoughts. Loving yourself doesn't mean ignoring your flaws or pretending you've got it all figured out. On the contrary, it's about accepting yourself as a work in progress. In my own life, I've made mistakes, faced failures, and stumbled many times. But instead of tearing myself down, I've learned to extend grace. I've learned to tell myself, it's okay, you're human. Just keep going. That kind of compassion for yourself That willingness to embrace your own imperfections, that's where real freedom lies. It's the freedom to try new things, to take risks, to fall and get back up, all without fear of judgment or rejection. I remember a time when I was struggling to find my footing in my career. The roles weren't coming as fast as I'd hoped, and I felt like I was running out of time. I'd lie awake at night, replaying every decision, every audition, every moment of doubt. But it was in those sleepless hours that I started asking myself the important questions. Why do you do this? Who are you doing this for? What really matters to you? The answers didn't come overnight, but when they did, they changed everything. I realized I wasn't chasing a career just to impress others. I was chasing a dream because I believed in my own voice, my own purpose, and my own unique contribution to the world. When you love yourself, you stop seeking permission to be happy. You stop waiting for someone else to show up and give you worth. Instead, you walk through life with the confidence of someone who knows they are enough. That's not just an attitude, it's a kind of power, a power that allows you to stand on your own 2 feet, to face challenges head-on, and to enjoy your own company. It's the power that comes from understanding that happiness isn't out there, it's already within you. And here's the best part. When you're truly free in your self-love, you don't just lift yourself, you lift others. People sense it. They see the light in you, and it inspires them. It shows them that they, too, can find joy and strength from within. That's the ripple effect of self-love. It doesn't stay contained. It spreads. It grows. So, when I say that learning to be happy alone is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, I mean it. Because once you love yourself, truly love yourself, you'll never feel alone again. That's the kind of freedom that no one can take away. It's the freedom that lets you walk through life, not just surviving, but thriving, knowing that your happiness is something you carry with you wherever you go.